G'day everyone, and welcome back, Barry Littleton. How you going, Barry?
Pretty good. How you doing, Pete?
Good, man. Thank you so much for coming back on the show. I've had so much awesome feedback on having you on. People are fascinated with you. You blow me out, and not many people do that. And you're a book of knowledge to me.
Thank you.
Like I said last week, I just wanted to get you back on the show because there's so much that you cover that I'd say that normal conventional ufology just doesn't want to go near, and some of the stuff that you've put out is basically stuff that I'm having going on along with a lot of other people, but a lot of people don't want to speak about, or they don't have a good understanding of it. Before starting the show, like I said, I want to put a format for you to get this information out because I think it's something that those interested need to hear, and people can do with what they want with the information. Unless they've experienced what yourself and I have experienced, I think people are going to be sort of not knowing what to do with it, maybe put it in the grey basket. But for me, it totally bloody resonates on every single level, and I'm always learning and just putting things into perspective for me, experience-wise. Just talking to you in half an hour before we've started the show, there's a list of things I've already wrote down that I want to cover, but like we talked about after the last show, it'd be cool to go a little bit more into regressions and the importance of it and the stuff that can come from it, and even we'll go into a bit of mine and your regressions in terms of what we got from it and what information came from it. So would you like to go into just whatever off the top of your head you'd like to talk about in terms of regressions, and we'll take it from there?
Yeah, I would say this. I honestly think that right now we're at a point of first contact, and we also often think that it's going to be like maybe the Star Trek movie First Contact, where the Vulcans come down and just we see a big show like that. We don't understand that. I think first contact is telethought and telethought. You know what I'm saying? So I think anyone that has seen a UFO, something they couldn't explain, and they observed it for a little while and they found out they lost it. It doesn't have to be a long time. Let's say like 4 or 5 minutes, 3 minutes. They were just looking at this thing and they realized 5 minutes went away. We're gone. They need to probably be regressed and just try it and see what did they really see that 5 minutes. We're dealing with beings and entities that can bend the space-time continuum. Just because we can't do it doesn't mean they can't do it. We're seeing it all the time. And once that type of contact happens, those memories and the retention of those memories is very difficult. So sometimes we have to go into the subconscious, if not the superconscious, a different frequency to recall them. And I say that because, as I've had experiences since I was a child, and so many of them were conscious. I remember a lot. You know what I mean? But then someday I became an adult and they came physically like I asked, instead of such astral things or dream type of body things. I said, no, I have to have something tangible, something I can prove to people this is happening to me. And so then when they came, it was just like, 10, 12 years later, and I wasn't prepared for it when I missed time. And I missed this time, and man, I practiced a lot of spiritual practices throughout my life, whether it be Ekankar, I even tried that at one point, you know what I mean? Pranayama, different yogas, things like that. Even Carlos Castaneda things, the Toltec things. I tried a whole lot of things, trying to just not just evolve, but also retrieve these memories, self-hypnosis. And I was unable to get to them. I had to be regressed. And when I actually was regressed, it came out so much more information than what I consciously remembered that I had to incorporate this. I mean, it's almost like a puzzle, a tapestry being put together. And that it blew me away. Good. Thank goodness it doesn't drive us insane, but hey.
No, well, that's the thing. And even from one of my regressions, I learned, because a lot of the time when I was talking to people is like, the shit I'm telling you is from total recall. Like, I could touch the beings and you could touch me. So it was a lot more physical than a lot of other people. And in saying that, I just get as much astral stuff now, so I give validity to either one just as much as each other. But for me, it was more of a physical component that they would vibrate into this realm. But in time from the regressions, like with the one I did with Mary, I learned that shit, when I'm having a sighting, a lot more stuff's going on. And in later times, there'll be times where I'm just so drained and people are like, what's going on? And what's happened is I'm filming the craft. I'm on the craft, looking at myself filming the craft. And then sometimes I'm even outside above the craft, looking down on the craft and myself as I'm in the craft and I'm on the ground filming the craft. So it's like my third eye splits into two and I'm getting two visions and then I'm still seeing what I'm seeing with my own eyes. Yeah. And it's happened because I'm aware of it and I'm in tune with it now, but it makes me go back to the other sightings I've had, whether they're just for a few seconds to a few minutes like you're saying, and whether it's astrally or telepathically, whatever, a lot more is going on, I would say, during every sighting. That's I think even with mass sightings that's going on it's affecting people massively on a mass sighting on a subconscious level. It's some programs or something is going on, and so I think that's where people like Mary Rodwell or Lee Kerr or whoever's, people like the passing of Dolores Cannon, which you say, but when Dolores was around, all them type of people, we need that because it's us accessing other things that. And you said before the show, like, you've listened to my latest regression, which I didn't hear, the one where I'm crying at the end because I said I'm so limited. Like, I saw everything that I needed to know, but I was so limited when I came back that it was like, oh, I'm back here. But the stuff that I talked about, I've heard about 5 minutes on and off, just when I've skipped through it. But like you said, there's a lot of good information there, and that's what we get from it is stuff that I can't even fathom until I listen to it myself. And that's what you've got during your regressions. With your regressions, we've touched on it before, but you've talked about hybrid kids. From the regressions, would you mind touching on what information and what you experienced and what you saw and what you got from those regressions pertaining to the kids?
Yeah. Well, I was unaware of the existence of a child, that I had a child there. Until she actually telepathically communicated with me after I had recovered from my accident. And I mean, it was, when the star beings or light beings come in telepathically, it's different. You can't just shut them off like you can people, or those techniques don't really work with them. They're really intense. Yeah. And it's like kind of like that all knowledge at once. What they call inductive linkage, which is where you actually feel your pineal gland vibrating a little bit, and then they kind of link up with you at that point, and it's just instant information. It's a much more efficient way of communicating than what we have. Anyway, it's something that she communicated with me and alerted me to her existence, more or less, which was very interesting, okay? I had my experiences with someone else, all right? The first three that were physical as I was almost an adult. And I think that maybe it had to do with that and that they had did a transfer, we could say. But the way in which the fetus was transferred was not in any way that I've seen other experiencers describe, okay? There was no one on a table. It wasn't like that. We touched a crystal that was in a room, okay? We were in a room, and this crystal went from the base of the ground to the floor to the top and had a spiral form to it, all right? And it was different colors. I'd say red, ruby red, orange, a little bit of yellow towards the top, and it was organic, okay? This crystal was organic. And I say that because as most of the crystals I've seen on different crafts, they emit a type of bioluminescence, or maybe it's a chemical luminescence. They glow from the inside, the same way a firefly does. And I'm sorry, but man, our crystals on Earth, nothing here does that. You know what I mean? Then we were instructed to hug each other and touch this. And it was a transfer, a telepathic transfer of this fetus. Okay? That's what happened. And let alone, I can begin to remember this because not just is the mist and the frequency of the ship so much different, we don't have technology like that.
When you talk about mist, what are you talking about when you talk about the mist? Is that what you see inside the craft that we talked about last time that you breathe is helping you breathe?
Yes,
Yeah.
and I experienced that more in like the maturation chamber or whatever it is. I've been in a couple of those now, but there's more of it's a mist, and it's a milky white kind of, and it's not all that thick, but is noticeable, like a light fog almost, and it smells to me a lot like I don't know, maybe Windex or ammonia. And it like into my first regression, they had put me in this room at the end because I'm getting so sick that they're telling me, I told you before, the temporal displacement is creating temporal aphasia. I know what aphasia is, but the different in dimensions and vibrations is, for me being there physically, I'm sorry, I'm not just walking around, it's not like that. I was very, very ill most of the time, and you have to adjust to the telethought that goes on there too. But the mist itself, I think, is something that allows them, although they're out of sync with us dimensionally, they can breathe, but allows us to breathe and be sustained also. But at the end of that, I'd say they put me in something that we would call a hyperbaric chamber. And I think they were pumping me full of oxygen before they sent me back here because I might not have been okay when I got back, throwing up a lot and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's to adapt you to get back to the environment you're from. With the transfer of the baby and all that you're talking about with the crystals, I know of similar stuff, but it was done energetically. And I even know of energetically, like the spirit going into a body for some time, and then they've actually pulled it out at a later stage and put another spirit in, sort of what vibrations can handle. I have clients or other people where I can, whether it's past ones or whatever, sometimes loved ones just want to leave because they can't handle it here. And then when it comes to the baby situation, sometimes I'm getting information that this spirit was just too hardcore for the body or to be here at this time. But I'd never heard of what you're talking about.
They call it a telepathic transfer.
Yeah, which I think it's something people need to hear again. And I'll vouch for you. We've been talking for so long, and I think people need to hear what you've got to say. It blows me out.
I'll tell you something to throw on top of that, Peter, that really, I mean, not just could I not shut her out, I have to accept that. Man, excuse my language, I had to take effing notes. I had to take notes, you know what I mean? And she revealed her name to me and some other things and what she does. And as far as these beings, as we discussed before the last show, these are what they call themselves the Extragalactic Interdimensional Cooperative Alliance, which is a number of beings, but a lot of them are so out of phase, they may be corporeal in other dimensions, but this one, it's very painful for them, and they don't want to get trapped here. So they need emissaries that will come to and from that can deal with this vibration here, the toxins here in our atmosphere, and just our density here, and still go back to the ship and exist there. It makes sense. So they need emissaries that can help with the, as you said, your first regression, the upgrade of consciousness. That's what I was told too. Upgrading of consciousness, and that's a part of it.
With the kids too, it's very similar information in terms of when I had an experience with the Elohim and they projected basically up to that point everything I needed to know about. Like I got instant recall of past life and bloody basically me standing there with them going, all right, I'll go down there and do this, and you know, basically my contract and a lot of other things and the beings that I work with and those I need to be aware of. With that came knowledge about the kids, because I had experiences with kids during the bloody day that people could see if they were there. You know, this was physical stuff. And I've had an experience with one of the daughters twice since then, near a school in the afternoon, and one at a shopping, at a little supermarket petrol station. And I even went up to the dude going, where's this chick? And he's like, nobody's in here except you. So it's been physical, but from my understanding is that even like the relationship is on such another level that I know that with some of the kids, the other part of me and Orion's looking after them, not that they even need that because they're that far advanced that we think, and this is where I'd been sad, but I got cool with just letting it go, is that I'd love to be part of their lives, but I know on another level I am, but they're that far advanced that I would be the child to them in terms of development and my emotions and how I think. So these kids can go back and forth in time, and they are the upgrade taking, from what I understand, the human aspect to the next dimension, and that they are like the we've been created as a super being in the 3D realm by a few races, and then they're getting that gene again, mixing it back with them and taking it to where they're from as like another upgrade for them. So this is where it's been emotional for me, and it's a bit of a out there thing like it is for yourself, but this is where it's similar information again that these kids are just something totally different that what anyone can fathom.
Well, you know, Peter, I couldn't even remember. I was unaware of her existence until she beamed in on me. Yeah, I mean, she rocked my boat. You know what I mean? And more than that, she very much looked quite similar to her mother. She's corporeal. She's a physical being. Yeah. You know, then during our conversation, when she starts telling me things, she starts talking about her children, which would equate to my grandchildren, your children. She would have been at this time, this is a few years ago, she would have been 18 years old. I said, your children. And then I had to go in the regression. It came out that, as odd as this sounds, in a different type of a maturation chamber that I've not seen illustrated yet, all right, by anyone, she was, her DNA was split when she was still in the zygote stage. And I think the time that she was in embryo and zygote was definitely not like normal children. You know, they're using the technology to accelerate everything. So several of her children, there's 6 is what I've sensed and came out in the regression. 2 of them that are physical, 4 that are not. They're light beings. Yeah. And the 2 that are physical are more out of sync with us than her. I don't know if they could exist here. That makes sense, yeah. And I mean, and then it comes out in the regression, you know, the regressionist is so good. She follows all my instructions and records it, you know, and she asks, did you see I was talking about the gestation period of my daughter? And she says, is that at this time? And I said, no. And I think they're also saying no. He was brought back several times to watch that. Oh, gee, great. I can't remember that either, man.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Obviously, the regressions have helped you, and they've helped me. I still need to get the balls enough to listen or watch the last one that I did. I think when I came out, just seeing everyone's reaction too was like, shit, this is going to be some hardcore stuff.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Do you have a problem with the fact that the beings start speaking through you, kind of?
No, because I don't have much of a problem with it. When it happened the first time, I was really drained for 2 or 3 days. And I'm talking to Mary going, fuck, you know, I feel like I'm not here. And I had what Mary calls the champagne effect, which is apparently their energy bands hitting my energy bands. But because there was so bloody many of them, I went into the last show, there was 2 Pleiadian races, 4 Orion races, including the Elohim. There was the 3 Sirian races and 2 Andromedan races. So usually you get 1 being or a race or 2 races, not all these races at one time. And so the energy was so intense that for 2-3 days I was walking around like a bloody zombie. So the second regression, which is up now that everyone can see, it was like they were aware of that, and that time not that many beings, about 4 races came. There was what I call Puman, Shiji, the Rainbow Orions, and the Elohim. So that was a lot less wear and tear on me that time. This time there was that many beings there that the beings that everyone who was in the room during the regression, their beings were there also, and it was like I was having a bloody coffee party with them. And I know that a few beings jumped in my body, but this time they turned the lights up and down, apparently in terms of brightness. Objects went bang in the room. But when I came back, it was sort of like I just seen so much and have got some recall of what I saw in terms of knowledge, but the effect of everyone else in the room and how emotional I got in terms of feeling limited again. Like I've astral travelled and done all that, but this was like the hardcore realisation of being limited here, knowing that we've still got the abilities to do what a lot of these beings can, though we don't know it. I was like, shit, but
well said.
Not so much the beings talking through me, and I know that you've had that happen as well, but it was more, which I was going to go into, the regressions are very helpful for people like yourself and me, but what trips me out is, like I've said to people, be very careful with your intent and your thought, not just in this reality, but when you go into a regression, because you may find out the truth and it's a lot. It's a lot to take in, because what it does is it breaks down the paradigm that built you up to your point of. So I'll just use an example. You start having experiences. You go open-minded, and you go, all right, anything is possible. Then you start to get a bit of a picture. Then you go and have a regression because you got missing time, and you have to break down that picture again. And this is where we continuously learn and evolve. But the shit at the stage of where I am in terms of evolving and learning, it's gotten pretty hardcore. And then I meet people like yourself, and I have regressions like I have lately, and I'm like I haven't listened to the latest one, but the second one, I still go, this is some pretty hardcore shit, because it's like even with Shiji, my Pleiadian contact, sometimes she would have lied to me, but she had to do that for my own good to understand the greater concept later on. And it's for my own benefit to get an understanding, because she's from a star and she's a gatekeeper there, and it's a portal. I wouldn't have understood that, because I was thinking human. Well, I've got memories of being a human Pleiadian, but that's what I'm thinking this chick was. And then she's like, you won't understand. So I think what it is with what's going on with the amount of shows I do, and the amount of experiences I have, and running my website and doing books at the same time and doing guide sessions, I think when I get a bit of time to go, all right, I can mentally get really stable to listen to the regression or watch it, that's when I'll do it. Because I think it's going to be a lot for me personally to take in. And have you found that for yourself? Is that I can remember we talked once and you said you didn't listen to your regression for maybe 3 weeks. You sort of just let it go on the back burner.
Yeah, that was the fourth one. I've had 4 of them done. The fourth one, they're rather expensive. And I give the hypnotist, he's well known, and, very specific instructions of what I want. And this time I told her I wanted to try to take me to theta, try to take me as deep as she can. Delta, I need to go deep to really get to these memories. And when it gets done, I seem like I'm fully conscious most of the time. We get done, she brings me out of the regression, she's counting down. I put my hand up, I'm awake, I'm alert, I'm fine. And she's going, are you all right? I said, I'm fine. In my mind, I'm thinking, boy, I could have taken this money and worked on my car or done something else with it. You know what I mean? She didn't do what I asked her to do. And I was a little bit irritated, to be honest, So when it got done, I paid my money. I took the disc she gave me, just kind of threw it in the back seat and didn't listen to it for a while. I was like, man, what a waste of money. She didn't even take me deep. I was conscious the whole time. But she asked me 3 times after the regression, was I all right? And she said, you've got a couple of self-confidence issues, don't you? I said, well, what do you mean? You picked up on that? And she goes, it came out in the regression. And, when I actually listened to it weeks later, it's me on there talking for an hour and a half. And I couldn't remember that either.
Well,
let alone
I've got some idea, but I only get flashes. I haven't had a complete wipeout yet where, like yourself just then, I think Romanex had it like that when he's spoken in the past and wrote about it, but I've sort of got what happens when I go out of body and something else jumps in. I got flashes of it.
Yeah.
But obviously, however that's worked and the beings have come through, or super consciousness, or whatever's happened, you've got no bloody recall until. Do you even now have any recall? Like, obviously, you listen to the tape or the CD and you're going, shit, something happened.
I transcribed them. I listened several times and thought I got the gist of it, and it woke me up a little. But then when I actually transcribed them and typed them out, that really changed things a lot. So now, I can see things more, and the more you deal with the information, more will come through, because it's like that channel is kind of opened, if that makes any sense.
No, definitely.
But it's if you can just get past the fact that, I thought I was Mr. Conscious Recall Experiencer, because I can recall so much conscious stuff, except for this, and that means really I don't recall that much at all. I think that we're so much more than what we think, and that's been proven to a certain degree, but we have these different attentions. What is like we call it left-hand side attention, right-hand side attention, or first attention, second attention. First attention is everything right here in the third dimension, paying our bills, raising our kids, just the amount of energy that we consume just keeping this stable and keeping ourselves surviving here takes most of our energy. We have very little for the second attention, that other side, that left side of awareness, that is where sleep lies, death, unconsciousness, superconsciousness, our superconsciousness maybe, our divine self. All that lies on that other side of awareness. but yet we don't have enough free energy to divert any to the second attention. It happens when we're sleeping and we wake up, we can't remember it. We can't remember a lot of things that happen in heightened awareness. You probably noticed that now. You might be talking to somebody and spiritually you say something to them and they tell you later, man, you said this to me and it really helped. And you can't really quite recall it. Has that happened yet?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Heightened awareness, it's just a slightly different thing. And that's what occurs. And I think hypnosis allows us to get to that, to the subconscious, if not the superconscious.
Well, that's the thing, and I'm glad we've covered that, and we can go into it a bit more, but I do recommend that if people can and they find somebody they do trust to do a regression for them, I think they'll be surprised with what comes through. I think it's very normal to be nervous. Fuck, I've been nervous each time I get it done because I'm like, shit, especially after the first time with Mary, I'm like, what's going to happen? I've got no idea, but you just go with the flow. But it is worth doing, and you are right that a lot of stuff goes on, and the information that can come forward will help put the pieces for you together like that it's done for you and myself. It's a bit to absorb, but it's well worth it.
I firmly believe, like I said, people that have seen these ships that wasn't like a government craft that we don't know about, a UFO of that type, but have seen something that was doing things that we're not capable of. They really need to just check into getting a regression, because the things that will come out, they may find that spiritually their astral body has been bilocated and they're standing on a ship talking to several beings, some of which may not even have bodies. They're light beings, energy beings. That was hard to accept first, but we have to deal with these things and understand this has been going on for thousands of years. And Peter, I honestly think that about a third of our population has had contact of some type.
I almost think every single person has. My personal belief is, and it sounds far out there, but from my experience, we've all lived lives on other planes and dimensions, and like I say to a lot of people that come to me for the guide sessions where I bring in the beings and I energetically get them acquainted with the energy and get them to notice their thoughts, it's one of those things where I say that, that's fact for me, and it's a lot for a lot of people to take on. But every single being on this planet is having contact in some way, and how it will come through is through they will perceive it as their own thoughts, and they're unaware that that thought has been transferred to them from somewhere else.
Yes.
So, for example, with myself, especially during 2011, every time I knew there was going to be a craft, during the day this was, outside, I went out there and there was a friggin' craft in the sky, like a saucer. Sometimes these brown metal balls with like black on the bottom, weird stuff that I couldn't even imagine in my wildest dreams. And then it took me after like bloody 20 times to go, shit, why is it every time I go outside, I know that there's a craft in the sky and there is a craft in the sky? And then I realised, shit, they're putting this thought in my head. I do now, actually, not all the time, but some of the time, I get bilocated onto the craft at the same time I'm filming the craft, like I was saying before. So I'll be very surprised on what's going on when I'm unaware, which I'd say a large majority of the time I'm unaware of what the hell I'm even doing. People see my eyes go completely blue, like the Elohim colour, like a blue light. No white background, it's like my eyes are a blue light. I know of a security guard up in Queensland that sort of freaked the hell out when he saw me do it. I can't even remember meeting him at this time until later that night when he goes, has anybody ever said that your eyes go completely blue? Like a light? And I was like, I can't even remember meeting this dude. I was up there for a talk, and he said he came in the room and I can't even remember it. And then I've had other people like Anya Briggs and others say that they've seen similar stuff going with the eyes. So this is where, even if you're, say, a little bit more in tune than other experiences like ourselves, because we've got a bit of a recall, and that's what the ego issue with us in the beginning was. I thought I knew what was going on because I've got conscious recall.
Exactly.
Then we go, shit, might not be exactly what we thought, and we realise that it isn't what we thought, but there's so much going on that we're unaware of that regression is a great technique. And I suggest that people sort of read up on Mary Rodwell stuff and Dolores if they're going to have one, because it sort of gets you prepared in a little bit of a way how far out it is. Because when I got mine done, well, even the information I had from Shiji, my brother knew of Dolores Cannon and had met her in Melbourne.
Oh, that's cool.
My brother said that the information I was writing in my books was the same as what she's talking about, but on a more condensed level. And he's like, do you know of her? And I said, I've never bloody heard of her. And then I read a couple of her Convoluted Universe books, and I'm like, this is a more explanatory version of what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And then it sort of got me prepared for where I was. It was like as if the beings upstairs worked for my brother to get me onto her work, to get me ready for where the real shit starts, which is very similar to what you're talking about, and there's so many other people. So I do recommend that. And is there anywhere you can sort of recommend people to go and research or look at things in terms of regression-wise, just to sort of get them a bit acquainted with it?
You mentioned Dolores Cannon. Her work is really good. Also, Barbara Eden did during, especially the beginning of her work, a lot of good stuff. Mary Rodwell does good work too, at least concerning to regressions. When I first started getting into hypnosis a little bit, I was looking at, I think it's Dr. Bernard is his name. He does the past life regressions and things like that. A lot of different hypnotists out there. But for what we're talking with, extraterrestrial, star being, interdimensional thing, I would say definitely look into Dolores and Barbara Eden. Yeah. Their research is really good, and Mary also. Yeah. And that's what, when I first discovered your regression, I typed that in. You had just posted it, the first one, and I saw that Mary did it. That made me very comfortable with you because I had just saw her on my Mom Has Aliens thing. So it really did it for me, and I was like, wow, because I knew that wasn't just, this can't just be me. Yeah. I'll be honest, I went to my first regression, and we were out in the country when the physical experience happened, and I was with a very good-looking female, and to be honest, I went out there to meditate, but really I had sexual desires, and I was sure it would come out that I was just a pervert out there that fell asleep and woke up and saw some weird lights. I was like, okay, so look at this.
I want to go out there and tap this, but really, no, I'm here to meditate.
Like I'm laying on the couch, getting hypnotized. I'm like, okay, I'm going to be exposed. You know what I mean? But the truth is, an entire experience happened that I was gone for a long time. 4 hours our time is maybe weeks their time. I don't know. But I mean, a lot went on that I just couldn't remember. And it's the vibration, the difference.
Well, I know of people personally, and it was in Dolores' books too, where someone close to me was taken with another friend that's close to me. And when they were taken, they were actually taken for 2 weeks Earth time and then put back at the exact same time they were taken.
Yes.
So this is how weird, and people are like, how the hell does that work? Well, like the beings keep saying to me, I think linear, and what they do ain't linear, and I've got to get it, and I'm trying to get around that. So how do I get around that?
Something like Doctor Who. If you got in the TARDIS, he could drop you right back when he took you. If we start taking the things that are science fiction like. Yep. They're bending the space-time continuum. So I mean, they may put us back a minute or two later, but they can also remove people at the time of accidents and help them recuperate a little bit and put them back seconds later. I think that happened to me.
Happened to you? And because you... do you want to explain just to the listeners? I can go to the first show we did with Bill, but would you mind just going quickly over what happened with you?
Yeah. Well, I, being with my high IQ, wasn't wearing my seatbelt. I was on my way to work, and I had an accident and got thrown out of a little Trans Am, and I went through every window in there. About 4 of them, okay, including the T-tops. So I took 4 catastrophic traumatic brain injuries. I was in a coma for about 12 days, and it took about 2 months to remember who I was. And I had a near-death experience. I kind of had come very close. I was in some type of a cardiac arrest on the way to the hospital. They had to resuscitate me, and so I had a near-death experience, basically. But the thing is, I recovered very quickly. And the doctors seem to not be able to figure out why, and I should be much more injured than what I am. It's not perfect, but as far as recalling my life and being cognitive, I've been very, very blessed, okay? And I think that, like the doctor said to me, we're trying to figure out why you didn't lose your teeth and things like that. You went through windows, you should have lost your teeth. But in reality, then I kept thinking, it's like the star beings and the light beings have to have something to do with this. And then later I came across Mary Rodwell when I was recovering, just before I got introduced to you, and she was talking about a certain type of people that had lifetime experiencers that get in these bad accidents that they should have probably died in, but that the star beings will take them out of the wreck or the accident for just a second and replace them enough to help them to survive. And I'm not saying that may have happened to me. I don't know. I can't remember. You hit your head that hard, you kind of go out.
That's absolutely hardcore, man.
I will say that in my near-death experience, a few people asked me, Peter, is what did I see? And I'm about to speak about this actually, but I saw what, I don't have a religion, but if I did, I would definitely call them angels. They're angelic, okay? More than that, I would say super angels, super nanophrem. They were not like the star beings, not like any other being I've encountered yet. Their frequency was much higher. The amount of love that they were generating was so strong that a little bit more would almost burn us up. You know what I mean? Burn out our chakras, I think, anyway. Spontaneous combustion or something.
Have you had any interactions in what I've had said to me are the Elohim? Anything like, because they've even showed me that there's beings higher than them, and now reading the Keys of Enoch, I'm like, shit, you know, and it's the same information they're telling me about Orion and the Pleiades and the energetic grid and the cycles and the bloody codes and all this shit I'm trying to absorb, but this is where I'm still trying to figure things out, and obviously whatever you're talking about is something almost of a similar type nature, because as you said, very, very high vibration.
Mm-hmm.
So,
you know,
you got any reference for a lot of the higher type energy type beings you've interacted with? It usually too, but they will give you something as a reference, but that's not what they are.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
You know, I give you an example. Like the last regression I had done, I was physically on my couch. You know what I mean? And they're doing the inductive linkage, which I said where your pineal gland vibrates and you connect with them. All right. And I can remember that experience quite clear. Okay, I had what appeared to be like a light being near me, but I could see them in my mind's eye. And we communicated. They told me things like they weren't grays, and they sent me certain things like the grays. Some of the grays that we seen, like the one that was on the table during that year that I think Jonathan Frakes narrated that, where they've got the being on the table and they're cutting him up. They couldn't prove it to be a fake. Yep. Even Stan Winston couldn't. They told me they got a kick out of that and that they weren't those beings, okay? And they said they couldn't describe what they were any more than what I could, okay? But that they weren't. And I say this in a non-religious basis, all right? They said that they weren't for the Christ consciousness and the Christ energy and the office of the Christ. And most of the beings I've dealt with have said that to me, all right? And they said it's beyond your human social religions. This is a consciousness, and it's a love frequency of God, our prime creator, all right? So I can accept that because their love and frequency hit me first, all right, before I even asked. But I asked, when I get approached by an inorganic being, I want to know what the hell's going on and who are they? I'm not just going to accept that. Yeah. They could be demons, right? You know what I mean? So, or deceivers, either or. The fourth regression I did, what I just described, was what happened to light beings on me and them communicating with me. But in the regression, it came out that I was bilocated. They bilocated my energy, my astral body, okay? And I'm standing in front of three beings that are on these light columns that look quite similar to thrones. And anyone that has the book that you're reading now, the Keys of Enoch, should look up what they call throne energies and throne beings. And that's what they appeared to be, and their head was kind of like light filaments that seemed to be going into the background, okay? And they told me that they were not just throne beings, but they called themselves Pleiadians also. And I started thinking, okay, like Pleiades?
Yeah,
and immediately,
yeah.
I don't mean to offend anyone, but I get irritated with all the Pleiadians looking like Fabio, Michael Bolton, and maybe Christy Brinkley.
Yeah. Well, no, it's a good point, because people have said, you know, so-called stuff about them. I said, did you know that there's black Pleiadians, there are Asian Pleiadians, there's shit that I've got no reference for, and I've seen this shit. And it's not all like what you just said, people thinking it's bloody Fabio, or, you know, it's just not. Whether they're black, Asian, or whatever, they seem to be a lot more beautiful and refined, because it's us usually in the future.
Yeah.
But in saying that, like Shiji she's a crystallized light being and first projected herself as a beautiful lady with huge eyes.
Yeah,
and while I was sort of a bit scared, I guess I can admit, to come out with my information was because it wasn't the normal Pleiadian. And I had information on Pleiadian as well, the same sort of thing. So this is where it's not the same as what you're talking about, though there is that light aspect of, you know, coming out of the head and she's a light being, but this is where what you're saying does also resonate with me, and it's not, and that's not to say I've got passed off as it being an actual white Pleiadian in the just outside the Pleiades, living in a big metal ball about the size of a 2-story house that was literally self-contained like a caravan, but it was like the size of a house. And I lived in a pine forest and just wanted everyone to piss off. I've got that memory, and I know that's the way it is, but I also know that not everyone's like a bloody white Pleiadian and Fabio looking, which I'm glad you brought this up because, and I'm sure that, you know, others have experienced what you and me are saying. It's just, I'm just glad you brought that up.
Well, you know, I didn't understand, because each three of these beings, not just are these on these, there were light columns, but they look like thrones the way they were sitting on them. Okay, and not just that, they're each holding, or in the middle of them are what looks like a very large quasi crystal. Okay, and I don't have any religion, like I said, I'm not into that, but a friend of mine calls it a sacred heart. It's similar to that, but this was more of a jewel, and each one of them had one different color. Okay, 3 different colors, and that was kind of something I had to understand too, how that frequency and how that kind of connects with them and what they represent on these thrones, as far as what you talked about, Metatron and our light frequency, our spectrum. It has all to do with our spectrum and the advancement of the souls by our color spectrum. I believe that. Like red are your more immatures, orange, yellow, green, blue, orange, and yellow. And you and I are familiar with the blue a lot. Blue's a very advanced soul level, so I think we're pretty fortunate.
Yeah.
I would say this, during the regression, you asked about a couple of the beings. Some others came out too, you know, that I just couldn't remember them. I can remember my insectoid friends and a lot of beings I couldn't see. Okay,
and they're not mantid types like you're saying too. It was different insectoid beings, which I just wanted to let people know, because they're not all mantid looking.
You know, he looked like Xandar is his name, and he was of the blue group. I didn't understand that at first because he looked insectoid, but they say I'm of the blue group, you're of the blue group, but we don't look blue. And he's telling me later that that's what I looked like millions of years ago, thousands of years ago. That was a body I used to have. You know what I mean? I understand that now. But as far as the regression, I described before a type of beings that came through, and actually 3 of the 4 I had done, and they said they were from the multiverse. And the one I dealt with called himself Mana, M-A-N-N-A, and I had to look that up, and I come up with the machine that was described in the Bible that was allowed. It made like some
made
type
a type of algae, which I think on one show I saw, it might have been Ancient Aliens, they've actually basically got that machine going today, and it produces a type of algae that the astronauts can live off in space. Which is because in the Bible, it's spitting out the same stuff. And then they work out that they've basically got this machine going today, and that the astronauts are living, they can live off this type of algae. It's like this green stuff, like a sheet. Yeah. So that's very interesting.
I posted on my Facebook a picture of the Mana machine itself. Very interesting looking, isn't it?
Yeah.
It almost looks like the engines, doesn't it? But I never actually heard that name before. And what I say he looked like, he was about 7-8 feet tall, all right? And he had, as the first ship I was on, where these beings were part of the Alliance, there's only some of them on there. The brain is on the outside, okay? The eyes are black but circular, okay? And when I start asking, you know, where are you from? What's going on? He starts flashing me the being on Star Wars. You wouldn't know Star Wars. There's a being called Dr. Akbar. He's one of the rebellion creatures that looks a lot like a frog. And a lot of them, he's like an admiral or something. He says if you can look into his species and find out more about him, you'll understand mine more. So I call my friends that are Star Wars junkies, more of a Trekkie myself, but whatever. They sent me to a website where I could look Dr. Akbar up. He turns out to be amphibious. 2 different types of them. one type that is a Jedi type. All right, very interesting. And they talk about the different castes between amphibious and the ones that are more lizard-like. Okay, it was just interesting. I mean, I couldn't remember that when I was saying, well, where are you from? Because I don't get the names I should. Even the Pleiadians told me, I said, are you Pleiadians? They said, no, we're the hierarchy of that, but we're in the same sector of space. You know what I mean? And but Mana told me,
they're in the same, like the Rhine sector, but it's not the same place. Which I think I understand now when they say that you wouldn't find us there. That's where I'm starting to think they're in another place, but in the same sector, vibrating wherever they are.
They used to tell me, I wouldn't even understand. And they start telling me things that are really odd. But Mana said, we're from the multiverse. And the multiverse theorem just really got known, about 15, 20 years ago. I had to really accept that multiverse. And I'm seeing, like, not just our universe, the cosmos, but outside of that, where some of these, black holes they don't know where that energy is going. They're calling them white holes and things like that. But it's creating another universe that's a bubble outside of our own. And I think that's what he's talking about. They're coming from their inside, if that makes sense. Yeah, it blew me away. I'll put it to you like that. And things like I told you before, a Bell 2256, and go 900 million light years out, and then go beyond nanospace. I didn't even know what nanospace was. I was just young. You know what I mean? It's
it's a trip, isn't it?
I tell them, they say, like, where are you from? Especially my friend, the insectoid. He says, you won't understand. It doesn't fit your parameters for life anymore. And when I find this galaxy, a Bell 2256, it's one of the first that the Hubble telescope is seeing as colliding galaxies. I sent you that picture. There's 5,000 galaxies in that sector, and they're seeing a lot of them are colliding. There's some of the first ones as far back to the Big Bang.
Well, that's where I surmise from my knowledge and experiences where what I call Pooh Man, who looks like E.T., but he's a really dark chocolatey brown with the round black eyes. Him and the Mantids are originally from, and they've outgrown that place and they've evolved that much. They're elsewhere, but that's where I surmise that they're originally some species of those types are from. Which, when I was trying to get a reference, I asked them for a reference that day, and then before I bloody know it, I knew it was around the Big Bang type area, and then you brought up Abel, and I'm like, shit, he's just giving me the answer. That's
they never have tried to elude me or anything like that, or deceive me, but they're telling me you won't understand. Focus on this. I think we talked about that when we were talking privately. We have bases on the third and fourth planets beyond Pluto. And at that time, I was barely familiar with Pluto's moon. Was called Chiron, isn't it? Chiron, whatever. But now they found these things called another Kuiper belt out there, just beyond Pluto, that they're calling trans-Neptunian objects. And they've got 3 of them that are the size of Pluto. So when you go out and I start seeing that now, not just the Sitchin's idea of Nibiru, but also just they're having bases out there. And they were telling me at that time, and I was a kid, they're saying your science hasn't gotten far enough yet to detect even those.
Correct me if I'm wrong, and you might even know, or some of the viewers or listeners might, but I think I came across an article recently where one of the planets in our solar system has got 100 moons or something, maybe as tiny as. But then I hear people like John Laird talk about 40-something planets within our solar system, and I've had experiences where I know of planets in our solar system that we cannot see.
Yeah.
That they're outside of frequency. So this is where we've got so much going on in our neck of the woods.
Because the planets you're talking about, it's Jupiter and Saturn, especially Saturn. Haven't they found something like there's 60-some moons around it now? Something like that?
Yeah, I thought it was around 100. It could be the same thing. This is why I'm saying don't quote me, but it's something ridiculous where I'm like, shit, that's a lot of stuff.
Spirit is bringing us in, so I think maybe we should bring it up. I don't want to deviate, but we talk about Saturn. We discussed before the book, The Artificial Rings of Saturn. That's the first book I saw that described these huge, miles-long ships out there that they thought were either mining or creating the rings themselves.
300 miles, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And, bless her heart, Dolores was one of the first people, and Barbara too, that talked about this thing called the net, and it's something I've always sensed. Okay, when we talk about this net, okay, it's a scalar frequency that when we come into this solar system, we come through. All right, and my understanding is that it starts at Saturn, which does look an awful lot like an antenna, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And it goes to like Mars, which would be Sidonia, that region there, to the dark side of the moon, okay, where coincidentally, the gurus always said that we kind of floated there too. We go there when we're dreaming, and also we incarnate there through the dark side of the moon when we come here. And then you start dealing with Richard Hoagland. We might talk about this last time, but his shard back there, that's 60 miles from the surface.
Yep.
And then you've got also ancient structures here on Earth that are generating this scalar frequency. And when we incarnate through the moon, that scalar frequency nullifies all of our natural psychic abilities. Okay, our natural divine. And it's more than just incarnating into the flesh is why we can't remember. And the dimensional frequency, it's more the point that we're being deceived, we're being kept asleep, because we get in a karmic cycle when we're here, and we become food for these predators, archons, whatever we want to call them, predators of our energy, of our luminescence, more or less. Sorry, I just wanted to go into that a little.
No, I'm glad you did. And what it is they've basically created like an internet box that we're unaware of, and it's not just around Earth, it's gone outside of Earth, including some of the planets, and that's starting to get to where I'm getting the same information, and I think some of that similar stuff came through on my second regression, and
yes,
it may have even gone in on the third, I'm not sure yet. So this is where, be careful what you ask for, because it leads, and this is where I'm starting to find out that you and others are talking about the same thing. One thing I wrote down just quickly, and don't worry, I'm very glad you just brought up what you just brought up. Comet sighting. Now, everyone was thinking about bloody Comet Ison when all that shit was going down. You brought up comet sighting to me, and then I found, again, that same day when you brought it up, without even trying, I came across Richard Hoagland on The Unexplained with Howard Hughes, which is a fantastic show. I recommend people go and watch and download. I've been on it also. I reckon he's a fantastic interviewer. And Richard bloody talks about comet sighting. Now, last week or so, shit's been getting hectic for a lot of people I know, including myself, in terms of energy, feel like I've been drained, attacks, everything else. We've had a huge solar flare going on in the last few days. Takes a little bit to hit us. Apparently another one just went off. I'm not sure if it was an X or not. These things put out huge-ass electromagnetic disruptions to us. And when I've done paranormal investigations to help people out in their home, they could even be sleeping next to a crappy power point, and the electromagnetic field will make them feel like they're fatigued, hallucinate, whatever. So imagine what it does on a huge level to the human body. In saying that, we had bloody comet sighting go past Mars. There's a video I posted on my website at petermaxwellslattery.com of a weird sort of flash explosion on Mars. The dudes are surmising they wonder what happened to some of the satellites and what's going on Mars. This is where we've got... Why I'm bringing this up is because it affects all of us. Those people, some people could feel fatigued. They feel like shit. There's going to be a bit of butting heads with people around you, whatnot. And with the comet going through the solar flares, we've had some weird stuff going on in Earth. I think we've had cyclones towards the America way. We've got massive snow going on in the Switzerland Alps. Massive rain going on in Asia through to Africa. So this, I believe, all plays a part. And energetically, this screws with us. And it screws a little bit with the Archon network, which I think is like at the moment, when this shit happens, it's like there's a bullet wound in us and they're shoving their thumb in that bullet wound and just sticking it into us. But what people aren't aware of is that we can actually knock them off their footing telepathically and in energetic ways when we've got this going on, because it also puts them off a little bit, because this is going... They try to box us in the network they've created, but in doing that, something greater outside the force has gone through their network, like comets and what the sun's doing, which is out of their control, and it's putting them off their network.
Our consciousness?
Yeah.
Our consciousness is raising up and starting to fight that.
Fight back. And that's what I wanted to bring up, because you are the first dude to bring to my attention comet sighting, and I think something's happened from it. And it was very funny because I can remember you telling me, Pete, this is the one that people should be watching for. Then I listened to Richard Hoagland the same day when I coincidentally, I'll say synchronistically, got this episode of him talking, bringing up comet sighting, saying the same thing. This is what we should be looking for. Has anything psychically or energetically come to mind about comet sighting for you? Because it's just funny that you brought this up, and all this shit's going down at the same time. And between now and 216, as I wrote and talked about the people in my last book, this is where the shit's going down. And is there anything that you can think that comes to mind?
Here's what I'm looking for. Last time we spoke of the sons of God and the Type 1 civilization that existed here past. And I think what I've been looking for a long time, and I've seen other ones like SK-344, other VG 1991. Those are things that are kind of near Earth, that are these objects that are very odd. And what I see it now, it's no different than what we're doing now. Type 1 civilization, we sent out like a Voyager, one that was much more advanced. And eventually it's going to come back. And I think it may be in ruins now, but eventually these technology is going to come back into our solar system. And I think we've got some of them we're looking at now that they're just hiding from us. And the way comet sighting, I thought it might have been Comet Ison at first, or the other one, Comet Elenine. I kept getting information off Elenine. I kept seeing crystals on that thing. And I thought that was what used to be called the living library, that was sent out to get all this information and come back and share it with Earth. It was sent out as a galactic type of a deal. Almost like there's a thing called the Van Neumann probe, I think it is. And they're these type of probes that will be sent out more like 2010, A Space Odyssey. You remember that movie? 2018, whatever it's called. But anyway, they sent an obelisk that sat on the moon and waited time to actually see for us to become close to a Type 0 civilization, that it would communicate with us. I think something similar to that, but I think this is just technology that's coming back here now. No difference in the way rocket boosters are coming back to Earth now from NASA and things like that. It just was probably on about a 2,000-year cycle, I think.
It's funny you bring that up, because in Dolores' books, and I've got passed off of being like a white light type dude in a crystal city, and there was like these towers, like you got the Washington Tower thing. And in Dolores' book, some civilizations have 1, 2, and 3, and it goes by the type of civilization they are that they build them.
Yeah.
And this is where it's just funny that you've brought that up. It's funny you also bring up that crystal library, what you thought that was, because, it just reminds me of the Schaefer Mysteries, which goes back, I don't know, the 60s, 70s, and you got the Deros and the Teros. Apparently there was these types of rocks which were like books of information. And this is the same thing I get from crystals. And look at what we do with crystals now, with quartz and everything else. You can store information and do all this wonderful shit that a lot of people haven't looked into. So just another avenue of something awesome you've brought up for people to research, because they're probably like, what the hell are they talking about? But we'll let them do the research and sort of find something out themselves. But have you got anything you would like to add to that?
I sent you something a while ago. I don't know if you looked at it. It was a missing scene from Superman Returns. Sorry, terrible movie. But it's the beginning where he's on the ship. He's going back to Krypton. When he comes out, he's in a crystal type of hyperbaric chamber, maybe suspended, automated suspension. He comes out of that, and he walks into the control room. And when he walks in, you see all these crystals growing towards him in like a 3D environment. He puts his hands up and stops them, and you can see the bioluminescence pulsing in the light, in the crystals. And the first experience I had conscious as an adult, I told you it morphed into like these, it looked like a Pleiadian ship at first, similar to that, and it morphed into these crystals, what we call quasi-crystals, that are glowing on the inside. It almost looked like a molecule in a way. And the only thing I could find that looked like that was the very first Superman movie with Marlon Brando and Krista Reeves. When he sends Kal-El, whatever, to Earth, he puts them in a ship that looks like a ball with these stalagmites coming off of it. Okay, and that goes into this Superman Returns. They try to re-illustrate that a little bit, but when he's on board the ship and you see how he's controlling it telepathically through these crystals, I found out why an experiencer had to have done that for even the first Superman. And I find out it was not just because produce problems. They thought that crystals was the way that humanity was going, the wave of the future. You and I know that to be true now.
Well, it's funny because what I'll bring up is you've showed me some stuff, I think, in Star Wars, how E.T.'s in it as well in the background, and E.T.'s very similar to the dude that we call Pooh Man, me and Giles, and now both of our partners have experienced a being. But what I was going fuck about just then was I haven't realised it until now talking to you. The craft, I know it's a craft now. With the Elohim, I would appear in what I called the Crystal Cave. There was no entrance, there was no exit, and there was a light within. It was like, I don't think it's quartz, but if it's equivalent to like quartz in a dome and a flat ground, and there was 12 of them in a circle around me, and the crystal had like a pulsating light within it. That's the shit you were just going on about, and I'm just like, so what type of crystal? When you say they do that, what were you saying? It was like a what type of crystal were you saying?
Quasi crystals.
Quasi crystals.
It's something. Yeah, our scientists discovered that probably about 10, 15 years ago, and it's they have different symmetries than normal crystals do here. And right now we can't grow them very large at all. They're still like microscopic. And quasi crystals I've seen they were huge. I've seen some that are like 8 feet tall. We could never begin to reproduce anything like that. And the quasi crystals we have here on Earth don't glow. They don't have a bioluminescence like the ones that I saw.
And it even appeared in my lounge room, and I was in it, half of it, one day when they projected all this stuff to me. I would say that one would have been maybe 30 foot in diameter or something like that. So that's big. If you're saying we can't even do and there's 8 meter type ones that you've seen, whatever I'm inside of, and it would have to be, I reckon, even 12 foot high, because the Elohim are about 7 foot.
I know you and I, we talked about some of the minerals that they mine from planets that are devoid of Van Allen belts. Okay, some, not just are those metals different, but they incorporate some type of a quasi crystal into the metal that creates the skin of the ship. And when they activate that anti-gravity, it actually makes those crystals look like a flash. And that's what we see, that big pulse. You know what I mean? And we think that they must have went like warp speed or something, when actually they just did a frequency jump. And they're still there, we just can't see them anymore. You know what I mean? Just like sometimes suddenly there's a ship there, and suddenly there appears to be 2, and then 1 is gone. That's what Dr. Shields and everybody are calling quantum holograms right now. Yeah. I believe before they make that jump, when they go into the wormhole, actually, that copy is made when they go into it that makes one appear it's still sitting there, when really it's the same ship. Does that make sense?
Oh, it does. And this is where I'm glad you're bringing this up, because it's just going to expand people's minds, like how I realise in time some of the crafts that I'm filming are just beings in their Merkaba.
Yes.
There's so much different types that I'm glad you're bringing this up.
That book you're reading now, the Keys of Enoch. I couldn't explain my experiences when I saw this thing. Not just was it not a Pleiadian ship, but it goes into these crystals. I couldn't even find anything in modern ufology to support that until I found that book. And what Ezekiel described in the Bible was similar, but still not. You know what I mean? But in that book. In that book, there's a thing, that's where I first discovered the word Merkaba. The more that book gives dimensions that they will change into things that look like ships into these crystals. Peter, I saw it. Yeah. That's the real there. And I didn't realize that, that also means that the ship itself can be an ascended master of a type, or just a being itself. I didn't get that. But then these things, a lot of people aren't, I think a lot of experiencers aren't saying how these ships themselves are organic, and they're grown, and a lot of them are grown in space, with these compounds we just said, but a lot of these ships are alive. And I just couldn't understand that at first while I'm inside of one of them. And my first regression, she's like, well, what is it like in there? When I'm telling her, what are you doing? I said, I'm touching the wall. It's like, it seems like a toadstool or a mushroom. It's that type, and I kept screaming, it's organic. That's what it is. It's organic. But you know what I mean? We don't think of our technology hasn't reached that point yet, unless you're looking at Terminator, cyborgs, or something.
But that's a very huge, important statement that you made that I will back, and I totally agree with. And it's the same with we've talked to Bill, and he's good friends of yours, and it's like the stuff that I mainly know about is created by thought. So this is where we either go into organic or crystals, or we could say nuts and bolts craft, which I think a very small majority are, and especially Earth type ones are. And the stuff I've been on are created by group consciousness projecting whatever the hell they want you to be in. And that's how the navigation, and there's no need for a symbiotic relationship because they've created the craft from their thought as a group, as a collective. So this is where it's great you're bringing this up, because there is such a wide variety of what we've experienced that, you know, this is where things really lie. And yet modern ufology want to look at nuts and bolts. Now, I'm sorry to say to people out there, this shit ain't nuts and bolts. Like Giles Campbell, my good friend, said, that maybe to some extent it would be, but with the level of technology and science that we have today, this is not our nuts and bolts of how we think nuts and bolts of, because it's far goes past what we know in terms of all that. So this is where people need to think outside the box.
You know, nothing that we're told about the star beings is correct. The media is only trying to dissuade us. They're always illustrating them as a hostile force and yada, yada, yada. And you know as well as I do, we've got a few sectors, a few I don't know, regiments out there that are rogue or whatever, definitely hate humanity. But it's not the majority of them, or we wouldn't be here. They're stopping that. Because right now we're so screwed up, we can't even manage ourselves. We're about to destroy ourselves, which they won't step in and stop. We're in free will zone. But I don't know. You know, going back to something that you had mentioned, which is the comment coming in here. I was watching that more because I was listening. He was just on Coast to Coast AM last night, Major Ed Dames.
Yep.
And, you know, him and most of the remote viewers saw something coming in close to Earth, not hitting us, but coming close, that would aid the shift, the polar shift that we're going through now. And when everybody saw, and everybody saw that, and they put their weapons down and just watching it, and they go home to their families, you know. But that object creates that polar shift, and then the sun erupts a solar flare that will penetrate our atmosphere and knock down all of our grids, right? And that would be almost hell on earth, you know.
But
and I'll go back.
We need all this. I really think as a collective, it's like when you go through bad times and you're having a shit day or things are really bad, it pushes you to go to a new place in the level of consciousness and how we think and we do things. I think as a collective we need to go through this. But sorry to cut you off. I just wanted to say that, but please go on.
Oh, well, you know, I see, I think it's Rupert Sheldrake has a thing he calls the morphogenetic field, which is a lot like kind of what Yoda calls the Force in Return of the Jedi. You know, the energy that is everybody together is generating the intent of all. You know what I mean? That generates that energy, that field. Right now, that field coming from Earth is very negative. It's one of war, hate, selfishness, mine, you know, and that, I believe, honestly, going back to somebody I heard describe this as I see it and sense it, Edgar Casey, when he describes how the sun reacts to the psychokinetic energy of Earth, the morphogenetic field of Earth. And right now, if that's hitting our star, you know, and we go back to the Gaia concept, our Earth is definitely a mother spirit alive. We've been torturing her, fracking, destroying things. She's been calling out to us to help by natural disasters. And what did she get? She got more damage. So what's the next thing she would do? She would call out to her parent star, okay, who's beginning to act very erratic to a point of where it's about to extinguish the cancer on the skin of its daughter. That's what I think. I don't mean to be negative, but the star beings never say anything negative to me. You're going to be destroyed. They don't give me that information, but I've got two eyes.
Well, this is the thing where after a certain point, the interactions make us lift our game, and we connect, and we meet them halfway, and in doing that, we start to get this information. I had a visit from Shiji a couple of days ago, sort of reminding me that remote view the energies. You know what's going on. You can see this coming if you do what you know how to already do. And I've had many other, we'll say, spiritual psychic people, that some that you know, that we talked about before the show, that is highly psychic, telling me that this is what I'm naturally good at. This is what I do. And it's like a kick in the butt to get back into it. And I do foresee something similar of what you're talking about, and I've never had anyone bring this up. And thank you so much for bringing that up. And it is something where the Earth now, Gaia is going to the parent star, shit, I need some help, because I've tried doing this. I've been putting tornadoes and cyclones and earthquakes and crazy weather. These guys just don't give a shit. Can you give us something that's outside of their reference to go bang?
You know, my guides, my star friends, they did tell me something. They said, you're in the free will zone. We won't stop humanity from destroying itself, but you will not be allowed to destroy the Earth again. Now, Peter, they said again. And I know I can remember other cataclysms we talked about before, but I'm thinking we go way further back, and it's been way worse than that. That almost the Earth was nearly a cinder in space. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I don't know, but they said that, so I don't know. But that brings something up. You know, I was very interested in like things like the Zimbabwe kids that saw the UFO and they were told protect the Earth, things like that. And like things like when we saw that meteorite that came in and hit in Russia, was that about 6 months ago, a year ago? Remember, there's that footage coming in, and you see something else impacting it that looks like another meteor. Now, I know that there's another group of humans on this planet that have been brought up by this alliance. They were taken off Earth as embryos probably, or even before that, and raised in another star system, okay? And they come here, and they have access to the technology. And they're the ones that put up a lot of this that they're trying to do, trying to tell people, please pay attention, because all those kids in Africa, Zimbabwe, that saw that, saw those grays, appeared similar to grays, saying, please take care of your planet, yada, yada. When that was remote viewed, there was only a couple of orbs around these kids, okay? Some of them that are in their late 20s now can remember seeing an orb, okay? But more, I was wondering what beings were trying to do that. So I try to use my telepathy and contact these beings, these humans, all right? And I got a response. They said that they couldn't do anything from hiding like they are, and they can only do so much. What's wrong?
Just everything shook from a helicopter coming down that low. Even the door just shook then.
We're getting too much attention here, brother.
That's trippy. Sorry, man. It was just, I've never had that happen. Go on, but.
Well, you know, I think there's only a couple hundred of them here. And what I was seeing, they're in some type of an installation, but they have access to this alliance technology. And that's what we're seeing, that they're jumping in things. And I just ask, how come y'all won't do anything about Fukushima? That's about the worst natural disaster I think we've ever had. It's not coming out yet, but it will. When the more genetic mutations happen, when it hits the environment a little more, we see all the sea damage, really. And any nation is automatically going to hide the fact they can't control it. They're not going to come out and tell it to the media. But I think that's a bad one we've got going on. And I said, how come y'all won't help and do anything? And they said they couldn't do it from hiding. Because I know they have the technology to change it, Peter. You know, and they're here on Earth, and they're humans, so they care. And what I've seen, and like I said, star beings tell me it's what I've seen, is when this natural disaster happens, if we take that path and that happens, all right, there are beings, there are people here to help us to rebuild our society. And I think that's when maybe we become more intergalactic at that point. I'm hoping that the other thing I see happens, that we have some type of a divine intervention, visual divine intervention. Only takes a few motherships come in here and pull out to change things. They don't have to even get out of the ship or communicate. Just to see that could change our destiny right now. We're in trouble, man.
Yeah, definitely. And that's yeah, I wanted you to bring up the alliance, and that's what you've done, and that's just fascinating how you've had interactions with, you'd say, Earth-type part of the alliance that was here to help protect, and what you just explained, basically, that's them. So this is where, a lot of, experiences like us, we get similar information about the Earth, and the information I had is that this is the fourth time. Each civilization had overlapped, but this is the fourth time now, and the same stuff of, they're not going to allow that again. They've even got, like, what I would say is other planets, not the new Earth, but other planets calibrated to continue stuff here as a bank also, and to continue, like, the human species in another format. It's like as if in the past I haven't had a plan A, B, C, and D, but now they do. So it's like this time, if they screw up, we've still got, it's not like everything's gone to waste. So that's just fascinating to hear what your people say on that.
They told me too that there were, and this wasn't a threat, they just said there are a lot of other beings, both interdimensionally and space-wise, that are waiting for humanity to thwart their stewardship of Earth. Yep. And we're very close to doing that right now by destroying ourselves or the planet. So, I mean, there are others waiting for us to get out of here. Yeah. And that kind of scares me a little bit. You know what I mean? I know that the Alliance and others have stopped a lot of this, but I'm wondering how far does that go? Does that make sense? Because the cataclysm of Earth is reacting to humanity. They can't do anything about that. So, sorry, the sun is reacting to humanity and Earth. They can't do anything about that. But I've seen you could get on the Soho website and actually look at the sun from like all these different spectrums, nanometers. And you can do it like for the last year, several years, any frame you want. And some frames you can stop and you can see these objects around our sun.
I've posted some of these, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, you see the big circle that seems to stop the solar flare? You know what they're doing? It was Earth directed. They're stopping it. But how much longer does that...
Well, that's the thing. But in saying that humanity got free will, that's why behind the reptilians and behind the force of the Archons, and we've played the same game as a collective of evolved beings of consciousness where, all right, they're going to play that shit. What can we do? Oh, we can actually reincarnate down there and play a part in humanity, because you can't have too much influence from the outside, or if any, even though they're obviously doing something. Like, as you said, they're stopping some of the solar flares. But what can we do? Oh, we'll reincarnate and play a part in humanity. We'll have a bit of amnesia, we'll have a bit of this, but that's where our soul groups and families will pop in and go, hey, remember who you are. This is what you're here for, because there's no other ways we can go about this. So this is where we've still got free will, but that's where that component comes in, I believe, of us playing a part inside. It's like going into the belly of the beast to help it and help it be well.
Yes, very much so. And it's, I'm hoping it's not too late. You know what I mean? We just need some assistance really bad. And it worries me a lot, but I try to remain positive for the most part, definitely. Did you want to talk about the technology? Is that what you mentioned earlier? You said something.
We'll talk about some technologies if you can go into it. Yeah.
Sure. Which kind? Which part? Or
just anything that you've seen. Like, we can go into some propulsion systems, but anything you've seen on the craft specifically, if you wouldn't mind going into that. Like, just some of the type of technologies and some things that, obviously, some things we haven't got a reference for, but anything you've sort of got a bit of a reference for that you can use with human terminology.
Sure.
Propulsion or healing systems or anything like that.
Yeah. Well, what I didn't say about when that first show we did, which is Bill that I did the show with, I've been hiding a long time, and he works with my father, and my father told him, my son is crazy like you, so he sees UFOs or whatever. So, but he kept calling me all the time, and I kept trying to kind of act like I was stupid, but he didn't seem to fall for it. And then when I actually saw him in person, it changed everything. Because I saw him, I was, oh my gosh, he's one of the people I've seen on a ship. And when I say that, I've seen people on these ships that seem to be in astral form. They're kind of transparent. But I can still see them. They're people. All right? But I'm there getting sick. I'm there physically. But he's one of the people I saw on the ship. So then I knew that Spirit wanted me to talk to him. Yeah. So I started giving him information. But that ship itself, I might have described it before. I was down by the engine, okay? And I'd say this thing has got to be it's got to be the size of a large skyscraper. It's huge, okay? And I see this engine looks like what we call a gyrosphere. Not scopic, but gyrosphere. And like the fairs, they have this new machine that spins around. Looks like there's these rings around it, and there's a ball in the middle, a spear in the middle. Yeah. That is what's this engine looks like, all right? And in the middle is this type of a silverish light, all right? But it's the circle that it's going around, but it starts emitting a light that comes about a foot above the apparatus, all right? And this light goes up a column in this ship. It's a column light, all right? And the deck just above me, I can see these people touching the light, okay? And the beings called it the living light. And I'm seeing all this technology, but I can't see the beings. Very disconcerting. They're beyond my mortal vision for whatever reason, but the technology itself is real, all right? They're telling me things like that light will heal human flesh, all right? I know something else about this light. When they touch it, it tends to turn into a wormhole as well and gives them the access to the Akashic records or whatever that might be. And I've talked to 3 different experiencers that have touched the living light, the column, and have seen like a wormhole right after that, a black hole they call it, all right? So that's a part of the propulsion that somehow is interacting with us. And I realized it's our own Kundalini, our life force, our God force, that our orgone that is helping to fuel this. That's why a lot of the ships, a lot of the beings just use these organic post type things, and they're connected in because they're already helping to power it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, it does, yeah.
It's a life force thing, you know, and I realize now because I can remember things like that going on Earth before. That's what the pyramids were for, were to protect technology like this. Like I said before, they convert energy into matter, matter into energy, almost like a transporter or something, you know. But that would be one type of technology there, okay? That's one ship, one experience, and I was very conscious of that one. I didn't have to be regressed, but I was much younger then, you know what I mean? Another ship would be the one I spoke to you of, the tall quasi-crystals, about 8 feet tall by maybe 2.5, 3 feet wide. And there are 3 of them, okay, on this ship in this room. And they're huge, and they're got what appears to be copper around them, and they're spinning, all right? And as they're spinning, they're emitting this hum, okay? And I can see that before they start spinning, they're pulsating with light from the inside, all right? And my insectoid friend over here, Xandar, who, like I said before, he looks much more like a cross between a locust and a grasshopper with human proportions. He did not look like a mantid. He wasn't like, sorry. Anyway. Anyway, he told me, he said, the sound that the engine generates will not just heal astral bodies, it will heal human flesh. And this just isn't for our motherships. This will power planets. That's what he said, you know, and that's another experience there, which I was younger and I was very conscious of. I didn't have to be regressed. Yeah. You know, when I got regressed, I come up against 3 different types of ships that I was not fully prepared for. You know what I mean? One of them being a conscious craft, pure conscious craft. And for that, it was trying to find something to relate to, all right? The other one would be the Andromedans that I told you. That's when you and I start talking a little bit about that. You've experienced Andromedans. Mm. Mine were the small blue ones, okay? And they were definitely connected to the ship. They even had these little blue outfits on with a little white stripe that they were somehow interfacing with everything. And it looked like the ship itself, the room I was in, looked like a like a weatherman, a meteorological station. That's the way it looked inside. The equipment in there and things like that. And they had a light bed in there. All right. That's what I call it. I was laying on this bed. It's much bigger than me, but it looks like it's almost crystals, like rubies and maybe amethyst and things like that, almost melted together, Peter. Look very odd. And they have me on this bed and the light is going, it's like scanning me. And I'm saying things like, are you guys scanning me? You know, and they say, no, we're energizing your DNA and reconfiguring your frequency because you don't believe in yourself. That goes into another deal. But anyway, and I mean, I was not being experimented on. These guys are like 2 feet tall. You could easily push them over and get off the bed. It's not like that. But who wants to do that? They're not like that at all, you know? And that's when Mana came in and actually started talking to me there and told me more about who he actually was multiverse-wise. I was like thinking, well, God, what happened to blue guys? I couldn't even see them anymore, and he came around because his vibration was so much stronger, it was harder to perceive him. That makes sense.
No, that makes sense. We'll wrap it up soon. I'd really love to get you back on, because I can just keep going. One thing I want to do, but before we go, is you've got a device there which we brought up, and for those who hadn't seen the last show I did with Barry, which is 2 shows back, which I think is episode maybe 47.
You're kind of going fuzzy on me, Peter. You're kind of
going a bit fuzzy, is it?
I say you went fuzzy on me here. I'm having a hard time seeing you and hearing you.
All right, can you hear me now? Hello?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yep. What we might do...
I can hear you a little now.
Yeah, are you able to just show the technology you've got there of that time travel device and go into that quickly?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, there. You can better now. This is something that we went over a little bit last time. We were talking about time technology. This is called the HYPER-DIMENSIONal RESONATOR that was created by Stephen Gibbs. What I can't show with it is it's got a large electromagnet that comes with it, a large headband that's like from a guitar deal, so it doesn't electrocute. 3 switches to start it, and a tuning device along with a rubbing plate. He sent a manual with it that you're supposed to be able to produce physical time jumps or astral jumps. I tried both. I find it doesn't do the physical jumps, although it did give me some weird deja vu type of things. I do believe it's a telepathic device. The beginnings of it. I had a friend of mine pull it apart, and we looked at it, kind of what makes its function, which is what's called a caduceus coil. So if you actually activate the machine and put a watch up to it, it'll make the watch just go crazy, according to where you put it up to the magnet, more than what a normal electromagnets would. So in that way, it does interfere with the time field, but it doesn't have a...
We're having a bit of trouble here. Have we got you back? Got you back, mate.
Man, okay, I'm going to tell you something. We were talking about something earlier, man. Do you get the impression we just got interfered with?
Yeah, I do, and I'm recording this now. So what I might do is just wrap up the show while I've got you, because it's just all going to crap now. Is that okay, mate?
Yeah, man, absolutely.
No, I do have a feeling with that, because some weird stuff's going on, which I'll talk to you about at a later date, because I do have to get going, but thank you so much. And what we'll do next time we pick this up, we'll explain a bit more about the time travel device. I'm so sorry to the viewers and listeners for this. Sometimes we just get this. But we can only do what we can do. But I'll wrap it up there, mate. And thank you so much for coming on the show. I absolutely love talking to you, and I'm blessed to have you as a friend overseas there. And I love talking to you and communicating with you. Just for yourself and the viewers and listeners, the 50th show will be up after this show, and it's with Mary Rodwell, and we've got special guest Giles coming in on the show. So just keep posted for that as well. But Barry, thank you so much. Sorry about the disruption.
That's
and
all right.
We'll leave it there, mate. But thank you so much for being on the show.
Oh, thank you for having me, Peter. I really enjoyed it.
Is there anything you'd like to leave the listeners and viewers with?
Just if you've seen a ship for any craft and you lost any time, a few seconds, think about getting a regression and just seeing if you had contact. That's what I would suggest. I think a lot more people have than think.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. So, yeah, something
That's
for people
first
to think
contact.
about. Yeah.
The first contact. Thank you, man.
Yeah, no, thank you. We'll wrap it up there, and bye, and thanks everyone for watching. Cheers again, Barry.
Hey, thanks. Take care, man.
Bye.
Bye-bye.